Hello all, this is Kade, and yeah, quick after the last one, but interesting ship just showed up and I want to talk about it. Also means I'm still sick, so sorry for that and all the effects that it will have. Yeah, the Anvil Aerospace Paladin, a ship that continues a recent proud tradition of stomping all over the grave of Aegis Dynamics. Because, well, it seems that Aegis Dynamics just cannot catch a break. They were apparently the evil Mesa supporters, and that means that in lore we should all hate them, and apparently CIG hates them as well. Because Anvil is literally just, yeah, they're just killing Aegis. It's just one shot after the other, and it's kind of sad, and I do think that needs to be a bit of a redemption for Aegis at some point, because this is getting a little bit ridiculous. Of course, being the gunship, the Paladin over here, it's squarely aimed at the Aegis Redeemer, and if you would like to have the short version, the Redeemer is utter and utter crap compared to the Paladin. And even if we would take a Redeemer before its nerfs, I think if like completely pre-nerfs, it has some benefit to it, especially because it has like twice the shield hit points back then. So there would be more of an argument that there could be some equality between these two. But Redeemer post nerf is, yeah, nowhere compared to the Paladin over here. So let's take a look through the statistics of the Paladin, because if the statistics don't live up to the way that the ship looks and all of the hype, then it's not worth looking at the ship, period. A very good example of that is the Crusader Spirit series. Beautiful looking ships, but the statistics on them are absolutely garbage, so you never want to have one. The Paladin, however, does not suffer that problem, so let's take a closer look at them. Starting out with then, the profile of the Paladin. So what profile we mean is the overall size. It is a tiny bit longer and taller than the Redeemer is, and a fair bit wider, about 50% wider over the Redeemer, at a Redeemer 25 to a 38.5, as we can see here for the Paladin. Now, a part of that width is because of the relatively inefficient interior, which we will talk about, and of course we have these wing bits out sticking here with the remote turrets on them. Now this, however, is a beneficial arrangement, because these being further out, it means it gives it better overall arcs around the ship. So yes, it is wider, so it would be a larger target, but it also means that in return you have better arcs of fire, so it is a bit of a trade-off. Component-wise, it's pretty much size 2s across the board in singular fashion, with exceptions in 3 areas. As in, we have double the number in power plants and coolers, so 2 of those each. And our shield generator is a size 3, which of course means that we have a shield advantage over the current Redeemer, because the current Redeemer with 6 size 2 shields is going to be around like, I think 60 to 65% of the shield capacity that a Paladin has. Of course, its regeneration rate compared to its capacity is going to be better, because size 2 shields tend to regen more of their capacity per tick than size 3 shields, but even then it's not going to make that much of a difference. Also, considering this is a Anvil design, it is to be presumed that it's going to have a fairly good layer of armor protection, whereas the Redeemer always looks a little bit more of a fragile vessel. So I would not be surprised if the singular componentry that you have is going to be well protected underneath some armor once the full Maelstrom system is in effect. Weapons-wise, well, here of course is where the comparison to the current day Redeemer is just utterly sad, because it's pretty much you take the current day Redeemer, then you just size up all of the weapons that it has, and then you condense 2 of its man turret into 1 remote turret. It's just overall much better. With this quad size 5 remote turret, which can of course relocate itself from the top to the bottom of the ship, you have a massive amount of firepower allocated towards this 1 turret. And that's very important when you're the pilot of this gunship. I have quite a few hours of flying the Redeemer with full crew, and one of the things that you find is fairly difficult is keeping both of those main turret operators focused on the primary target, because the ship just gets in the way, especially if you get closer towards the target itself. It gets harder and harder to keep both of those turrets turrets on the target. With just a single turret, this is no longer a problem. Which means as a pilot, you can fly up on the instructions of your primary turret operator or your co-pilot. So they will be like giving you instructions, like for example, hey, bank 45 degrees starboard, you'll bank 45 degrees starboard, if you have, of course, the safety to do so. And you just fly upon their instructions. So they're like, hey, I need you to angle the nose down by about 15 degrees. You do that, up, whatever. They are the ones that are doing the major lifting of the firing and the shooting. Their instructions matter. Then we have these two side remote turrets, which are size 4s, which is important because those are the largest gun size where we still have effective anti-fighter options with high projectile velocity weapons, which are no longer available when we go to size 5 weapons. So you go from like 1800 to 1100 max. So these turrets' primary job is to shoot at any fighter craft that are trying to come after your gunship. Of course, if no fighter craft is coming after your gunship, they can also join in shooting at a primary target if they have a solution on it. And if they don't have a solution on it, it's like, it doesn't really matter. As the pilot, my instructions I'm following, my primary gunner. That's the one I need to keep on target. Those side turrets, they're either shooting at fighters, and that's just their job, do their own thing. If there are no fighters, they can shoot at the primary target if it's available to them. If there's no target available, then they just don't shoot. I don't care. And then the missile 6 size 4s. Concept art shows it as 1 size 4, and they go with dual size 3s on the other mounts. I would go with full size 4s. I would use those missiles as a finishing blow towards your first target that your shields are going down on from the primary turret gunner. Get that first target to go be dead as soon as possible so you can move on to secondary targets. You're not going to be shooting at smaller ships anyway, so going with smaller missiles doesn't make a lot of sense because they should not be in your arc of fire. So with that all said, let's take a look at exterior and interior a little bit more. Right, so exterior to start with, quick overview again of what we talked actually about. So we have those side turrets, primary turret, and of course your cockpit area, which is like dual layered. We'll see that later on. I think it's a really, really cool cockpit layout overall. And you can see over here this very clean, like anvil, like shaped armor plating, which I think does look really cool on the ship again. And we can see this track, of course, that the primary turret will follow when it readjusts its position from the top or to the bottom. Now it doesn't have any other positions, but it also doesn't need any of them because any other location on this track doesn't give you any benefit. And it does show you just like the location of these turrets being out here. This being sloped down, they can really fire nicely on top, below, towards the aft. Like the only dead zone that they really have is directly after the ship in close range and directly in front of the ship in close range. But then you're looking at really close ranges. The interior, now here we can see that there's a fair bit of wasted space. So here we have the upper deck. So upper deck, of course, has the pilot and co-pilot. Co-pilot, of course, being the primary gunner as well. Your small area up here, we have a ladder that goes between the decks here as well. And we have a main stairway that goes between the decks here as well. No elevators, which is like, hallelujah, CIG, I want to see more of this, please. Less elevators, more stairs. Because stairs are just better at moving people through spaces. They're much more efficient than elevators are when it comes to moving people between just a couple of decks. Like elevators make sense when you need to move up a lot of decks, or you need to move like horizontal to a very large ship, like, you know, your traditional Star Trek turbo lifts. Then they make sense. But if I just need to move from like 1 deck to 2 decks higher, stairs are a much better solution than elevators. So, love to see stairs, want to see more of them. We have what looks like a combined head here again for everybody. So it seems this a bit of an unusual location. But then again, like, it's one of those military ships where it was like, hey, yeah, we made some bunks and there's places, and somebody's like, okay, but where we're going to shower? And it was like, oh, fuck, we forgot about that. Yeah, but we can squeeze one in there. That will be fine. That's how that one feels to me. I would like to have seen it like included in these rooms because it feels like there would be space for it. But overall, as you can see, there's a lot of empty space in this interior. Like here as well, I think maybe there's going to be like a kitchenette behind here that would make sort of sense. Or we could see that over here, because like this is just entirely dead space. This section over here behind the stairs, you cannot do anything with that. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that there's nothing done with that yet. But then again, these are concepts, so that may change. I assume behind here, this is going to be like an engineering area, so we're going to see our components hidden behind hatches and stuff like that. And then we have our two crew bunk areas, so you're probably going to have like your pilot, co-pilot, and then gunner 1, gunner 2 located over here, and a small land section over here, so it's where you're going to chill out whenever you get a chance to chill out when you're flying all of these things. Lower deck. So we can see we have a little bit less volumetric space, of course, to work with. Lower part of the cockpit. You can see that ladder back up to the upper layer of the cockpit. Our stairs, and we have a lot of empty space. And then we have our suit lockers and our exit over here. I would love to see like a row of jump seats in here. Because I do think that the military would be like, hey, we got this gunship, there's space inside. Just put some jump seats in there, just in case we want to drop like a squad of Marines. Or even special forces. Like, you know, drop them in with a gunship, so there's a lot of firepower available to them right away as well. And they don't need any living accommodations on board, because they would literally be like, okay, I'm landing this thing, they get on board, they sit down, it's like, where are we going there? Okay, let's go. We fly over there, we drop them off, they get off, and they go ahead and do their thing, and we go ahead and do our thing. And in that case, our thing is probably going to be to shoot at whatever thing they are like, hey, that thing needs big gun to blow up, please blow up big thing. So that would make a lot of sense to me. Just add a row of jump seats in here. I think that would be a very great addition, and it would make use a bit of these empty spaces that the ship has a lot of as it currently stands. Like this space being somewhat larger and empty, I think makes sense, because, you know, you have your suit lockers here, so like lore-wise, like not gameplay-wise, but lore-wise, you probably want to have a little bit of space. I mean, you have some crate with some stuff in there, and you just like, you know, suiting up, gearing up. It's nice to have a bit of movement space when you're doing those kind of things, especially if you're doing it with 4 people at once. So over there, I like it. Here, I would like to see some jump seats, and then up here, like make something like a kitchenette or whatever. Or alternatively, what they could do is there's clearly some space behind here as well. Maybe they could make like a day hat for this crew over here, and then take this space out in here and make a hat over here for this crew, and then turn this into like a kitchen area. That could also be an option. Here we have that cockpit layout, which I really enjoy. So you have this double layer cockpit. It's entirely like this open cavernous space. Does it make a lot of sense? Maybe not, but it looks really, really, really cool. And as a pilot, being able to look down and look up does make things like landing and taking off so much easier, because you just can see what's going on. I don't need to go into third person. And because for some reason we still don't have a holographic representation of our ship and our landing space, CIG, where the fuck is that shit? We have to go third person right now, and I don't really want to do that. Because to me, it's kind of immersion breaking. I want to be able to land the ship from my pilot seat if I'm flying the darn thing. So this would allow me to very much to do that. So yeah, I love this layout. I think it looks really, really cool. Let's take a look at some of the promo shots that they have given us, because being a concept sale, of course. So we can see the classic rotating engines. These are taken straight off the terrapin, of course. And it pretty much looks like these were just dropped into here in the back as well. I think that looks kind of cool. Overall, it has a nice profile to it. You can see our entry point, of course, over here. Doesn't appear to be a lot of space underneath it, so I don't think it can land with a turret at the bottom of the ship. So you probably have to put a turret on top, and then you can land, which also makes a lot of sense, because why would you want to have the turret on the bottom of the ship when you're landed? There's no real good reason for that. Here we can see the turret in its ground pounder mode, so at the bottom of the ship. Most definitely you would want to surrender, because if you get hit by that, you just get vaporized. Not a very nice experience. But it just shows you how handy this is, especially compared to the Redeemer, because the Redeemer just cannot really get all of its guns pointed at the ground, effectively speaking, because that top turret is not going to have a good line of fire, unless like the Redeemer's flying completely on its side, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, it can be done, it's still not ideal, yada yada, the engines are still in the way, and it's not great. And the Paladin's layout of the guns allows you to focus all of that firepower on the ground, towards the front, towards the rear, towards the top, towards the bottom. It just works so much better. And it's also just really intimidating to look at a quad size 5 turret looking at you, which means, you know what, let's not have any arguments anymore. I also think like something like a Nova tank that is going to look at this thing is going to be like, yeah, fuck, I'm done for. Shooting at the Drake ship, the Ironclad, of course, but it looks fit. I mean, it's never a bad idea to shoot at a Drake ship, in my opinion, so go ahead. Just between you and me, I did recently get an upgrade from the C2 to the Ironclad, because the Ironclad is just so much better than the C2. But don't tell anybody. So, yeah, cool shot. Here we see the 2 side turrets in front of fire mode, because it looks really cool. And like I said, you would do this if you don't have anything small to shoot at, and of course shoot them towards whatever you're trying to shoot at with the primary turret, which for some reason isn't firing in these shots, which I find kind of unusual. But maybe they don't want its laser beams to obstruct the looks of the ship. And finally, we have the special paint. If you were a concierge member, you can buy it with a black paint, because black paints sell in games. Don't know why. I mean, like, some of them I like, I'm not gonna lie. It's just, I think, something that our gamer brains are just hardwired to. Oh, it's a black paint, it's cool, I must have this. I will buy the black one. I must have the black one. It looks so cool. Or something like that. I don't know, but it looks kind of nice again. I do like the default paint a lot as well. So overall, I like the concept of the ship. Its statistics are really good. The weapon layout is amazing. Cockpit is great. Interior, it's be great. Like, there's definitely some improvement that could be made there. And I do hope they will rejiggle that a little bit. But that, I think, is the only main downside of it. Price-wise, currently at 250 war bond, it will probably go to 300 when it's flyable. So price-wise, it's comparable to the Redeemer 1-to-1. It's just that when it comes to the statistics and everything, the Redeemer is just poor Aegis. Like, seriously, poor Aegis. It seems the only thing that Aegis has going for it is the fact that they have the Idris and the Javelin. And I'm fairly sure if it wasn't CRG, that would be like, we're gonna... I'm fully expecting to see like an Anvil capital ship coming in with Invictus next year. Just to continue this stomping on Aegis. I think it's really sad, because I used to have quite a few Aegis ships in the fleet, because they have a really nice design to them. And I still like quite a few of them, but Anvil just overall just does everything that Aegis does better, it seems. And I guess lore-wise it makes sense, because they are the new primary supplier for the UEE Navy, considering that Messer-era connection that Aegis has. But from a game perspective, I do hope that Aegis gets some love again as well soon. Because we do need some balance in the force, so to speak. In this case, the literal armed force. So yeah, that's the Anvil Aerospace Paladin. I think it's a really, really well-designed ship, and I think it's going to be a very, very strong vessel in any combat fleet. And also, if you're running like an industrial orc or stuff like that, having some ships around like this that have a fairly sizable amount of firepower and that do not demand too much like pilot skill like fighters tend to do, this is going to be a very useful like combat edition escort ship to your industrial organization operations. Because you're not dependent on that pilot skill as much, because you're just more dependent on bulk protection and bulk firepower over what you're needing to deal with fighters, where you're just a lot more like everything is dependent on you. While here the pilot is just job is only to fly the ship, it doesn't need to shoot anything, and the turret gunners, their job is only to shoot at something. So it does make the workload a lot lighter. So yeah. Whether you're industrial, whether you're military focused, or anything else in between, if you want some firepower, the Paladin is a very hearty recommendation from my hand. And with that, I have been Kade. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. And till next time, I hope we see more interesting stuff around Star Citizen. Goodbye.